Welcome to a short reflection by Sebastian Mahfood on Canto 28 of Dante's Paradiso. Beatrice ends the previous canto with a denunciation of the state of mankind, where faith and innocence are found nowhere except in little children, and both have fled before their cheeks have sprouted a first hair. The reason for this, she explained, is lack of good governance, for the papacy, Ciardi notes, is corrupt, and the emperor has abandoned Italy. Aristotle had, after all, explained that the purpose of the law was to make man good, which it no longer does in a culture of legal positivism, where it merely facilitates man's vice. Dante, at the beginning of this canto, has been looking into Beatrice's eyes while she is speaking, and sees within them a torch begin to burn behind him. He turns from the reflection within divine revelation and sees the real thing. It is his first direct vision of God, whom Dante sees with his own powers as a point that radiates light. Beatrice explains that from this one point are hung the heavens and all nature's law. Dante then notices that within the radiant light are a number of spheres, and that within these spheres are the various orders of angels. The problem that Dante identifies is one of perception, for he has come to understand, as he's moved through these first 9 spheres, that each sphere is greater the further out he goes, but with these angels each sphere is lesser the further it extends out from God. It would seem, following the model, that the spheres closest to the center would be the least powerful, and those furthest away would be the most powerful. What Beatrice explains is rather complex, that the greater power is assigned to larger spheres, and the lesser power to smaller spheres, and that the influence these angels exert over their spheres is from the greatest to the least, according to the capacity of each angelic choir. Ciardi solves the puzzle more simply by his pointing out the obvious, that the closer a choir's proximity to God, the stronger it is, and the faster it turns in revolution around him. A map will help our description. Beatrice identifies 9 orders of angels arranged in 3 triads, the first of which including the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, the second of which including the dominions, virtues, and powers, and the third of which including the principalities, archangels, and angels. Each of these groups influences the corresponding spheres of heaven in a kind of overlay. The furthest away from God, the angels, influence the lunar sphere, while those closest to God, the seraphim, influence the prima mobile. The smallest rings, therefore, exercise the greatest influence, because the closer to God each is, the faster it revolves around God, and the more fervently the angels who reside within it dance in the glory of God. Their proximity to God is a demonstration of their capacity for God, and the greater love each possesses merits the greater grace each is freely given. It is important for us to note that these angelic spheres do not emanate outward from God as though they were part of God's essence, but each was created by God out of nothing. Though they are eternal in the same way human souls are eternal, they are not co-equal with God or a part of God, for God is subsistent being who has no parts. This was defined by the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215 in the following language: "We firmly believe and profess, without qualification, that there is only one true God, creator of all things visible and invisible, spiritual and corporeal, who, by his almighty power, from the very beginning of time, has created both orders of creatures in the same way out of nothing." The angels are purely spiritual beings, according to St. Thomas, without a trace of materiality, but humans are created as spiritual and material beings, composite in our nature, which is why the incorporeal human souls in heaven must be resurrected in the body for them to be complete. Angels, on the other hand, are pure intelligence. While we have to reason things out starting with the application of our senses and our environment, they intuit all knowledge. In this sense they are superior to us, but they are called by God to be messengers to us from God, as Raphael was a messenger to Tobit, and Gabriel was a messenger to Mary. So in that sense they serve man's relationship with God, and Christ said in the Gospel of Luke 20:36 that when we die we'll be like them, in the sense that death will never again overcome us. All the ends of the earth have seen the saving power of God, and, moreover, God himself, through Christ's presence among us. For Christ said, as reported by the Gospel of John 14:7, "If you know me, then you will also know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." We first learn through our senses, but the things God has revealed are a direct communication. And whenever God directly communicates with us, he does so in the act of, ultimately, calling us home.